Everything we call traditional education, the passive reading, the endless highlighting, the quiet reviewing of lecture notes, is fundamentally elaborate procrastination.
Wow.
Scott Young's central, brutal thesis is that the vast majority of time you spend preparing to learn a hard skill is wasted. True proficiency, what he calls ultralearning, only begins when you stop studying and aggressively start doing the thing you want to be good at.
That is a very harsh condemnation for anyone who has ever spent a whole night making flashcards.
It is.
It immediately brings up a question, though. If ultralearning is just about intense, self-directed effort, why do we need a whole book about it? Isn't this just a fancy word for working really, really hard?
And that's the key distinction. It's not just hard work. It's an intelligent, highly specific strategy.
Okay.
Ultralearning is this self-directed, intense strategy for acquiring skills and knowledge that, it prioritizes maximum effectiveness per hour. It's the difference between just swinging a hammer wildly and using a laser-guided drill. The framework is built on 9 principles. But for this deep dive, we're focusing on the core 3 that really unlock this whole thing: metalearning, directness, and retrieval. And our mission here at Nonfiction Insights is to unpack these so you can actually use them.
I like the focus. So where do we start with this laser-guided drill?
We begin at the very beginning with the map. This is metalearning.
Metalearning.
It's simply learning how to learn the subject. You don't just jump into the content. You spend time figuring out the terrain first. You break it down into 3 questions. Why are you doing this? What do you actually need to know? And how are you going to learn it?
Okay.
The book suggests a rule of thumb. Dedicate about 10% of your total learning time just to this research phase.
Wait a minute. That sounds like a paradox. You just said preparation is procrastination, and now you're telling me to spend 10% of my time not learning the actual subject.
I know. It sounds contradictory.
For someone who's eager to start, that feels exactly like intellectual procrastination.
And he addresses that resistance directly. The idea is that this initial research prevents you from falling into the most common trap, which is choosing a popular but suboptimal method.
Like what?
Well, think about learning a language. Everyone knows Duolingo, right? But if you talk to actual polyglots, many of them will tell you those tools are built for convenience, not for real mastery.
Right. They're more like games.
Exactly. Metalearning forces you to find the real bottlenecks, the rate-determining steps that are going to hold you back. You're choosing long-term efficiency over short-term comfort.
So the map makes sure we don't accidentally take the scenic route just because it has a better app.
Okay.
That makes sense. What's next?
Next is directness. This is the antidote to the biggest failure of traditional education, which is something called the transfer problem.
The transfer problem.
Yeah. It's when you learn something perfectly in, say, a classroom, but you can't apply it in the real world.
Yeah.
You master the grammar rules in a textbook, but you can't actually hold a conversation. The knowledge is brittle. It doesn't transfer.
I think everyone has felt that.
Directness says you have to plunge right in. You acquire hands-on experience by doing the target task, not a substitute for it. If you want to be a public speaker, you speak publicly. If you want to code, you build something that solves a real problem.
But plunging right in is terrifying. I mean, if I do that, I'm just going to fail immediately. And that's the fastest way to get discouraged and quit.
And that fear is exactly why directness can't work alone. It has to be paired with our 3rd core principle.
Retrieval.
Retrieval.
This is the idea that testing isn't just for assessment. Testing is the method of learning.
How is testing a learning method?
Because actively pulling information from your memory is so much more powerful than just passively looking at your notes. Psychologists call it desirable difficulty.
Desirable difficulty.
Yes. When you force your brain to struggle to retrieve a piece of information, the harder that struggle is, the deeper the memory becomes. Directness shows you what you don't know, and retrieval forces your brain to build that connection. Okay, so map the terrain, jump in the deep end, and then force yourself to remember how to swim. Let's make this concrete. How did this work in, say, Scott Young's own MIT challenge?
The MIT challenge is the perfect example of radical directness. He decided to complete the entire MIT computer science curriculum in just 1 year, on his own.
Which is insane.
It is. But he made his learning incredibly direct. He focused only on what actually mattered for competence, passing the final exams and completing the programming projects. He just cut out all the busy work.
Okay, but if he skipped the lectures and the weekly homework, how did he fix his weak spots? He didn't have a professor to give him feedback. How did he know what to work on?
That's the crucial question. And the answer is another principle called drill. You use what he calls the direct then drill approach.
Correct, then drill.
First, you try the skill directly. You try to pass a practice exam. You fail. That failure tells you exactly what you don't know. So you pause the direct practice. You isolate that one bottleneck, that one calculus concept, for example, and you drill it until it's fixed. Then you go right back to the direct practice.
Ah, so you're not avoiding the basics. You're just only learning them precisely when you need them. You don't study calculus for 4 months just in case. You study the one function you need to make your program run right now.
Precisely. Think of Benjamin Franklin. He didn't just write essays to get better at writing. He would take arguments from other writers, jumble them up, and then try to reconstruct the entire persuasive structure from memory. He was drilling the specific skill of argumentation.
And what about retrieval? How does that fit in at this intense level?
The best example is the Jeopardy champion Roger Craig. He downloaded tens of thousands of past questions, used software to categorize them, and then used a spaced repetition app like Anki.
So he was basically creating his own high-tech flashcard system.
Exactly. But the software optimized the timing. It forced him to recall a fact right before he was about to forget it.
Yep.
He was engineering desirable difficulty on a massive scale.
I get the mechanics, I really do. But let's be honest about the emotional side of this. This sounds completely and utterly exhausting.
It's intense for sure.
It's more than intense. Are you saying that if people aren't willing to dedicate a year of their life to learning 4 languages or an entire CS degree, they're, lazy? Or they just don't have the guts for it?
That resistance is real, and it's a fair point. But the book argues that what's really exhausting isn't the work, it's the inefficiency. Scott Young himself said he wasn't working the insane hours of, say, a medical resident.
So it's about the quality of the hours, not the quantity.
Exactly. The intensity comes from eliminating all that low-value passive stuff, so the hours you do spend are creating visible progress. The energy comes from seeing yourself get better fast.
But even the best strategy can hit a wall.
Yeah.
What happens when your perfect plan just doesn't work?
That's where experimentation, another one of the principles, comes in. If you fail, you don't quit the goal, you change the method.
You pivot.
You pivot. Look at Van Gogh. By all accounts, he was considered a failure early in his career. His technique was clumsy. But he didn't give up on art. He just relentlessly experimented with different styles and resources until he found what worked for him. Failure is just data telling you where to experiment next.
Okay. Let's try to solidify this with another example. You mentioned one in our prep, the guy who made Stardew Valley.
Yes, Eric Barone. A perfect modern example. He developed that entire hit video game, the programming, the music, the pixel art, all by himself, with no formal training.
That's an incredible range of skills. How did he not just get completely overwhelmed?
He used directness with a drill tactic called prerequisite chaining. He started by making the pixel art directly for his game, but his first attempts, especially the colors, they looked terrible.
What did he do?
He didn't quit. He paused the game development, went and learned the necessary foundation, in this case color theory, and then immediately came back and applied it to the game.
So the action identified the knowledge gap.
And filling that gap was immediate and laser-targeted. He never studied color theory for its own sake. He studied it because his game demanded it right now. It's the total opposite of the academic model.
And this whole framework, it's not just a productivity hack. You're saying it's becoming a necessity.
It really is. The economist Tyler Cowen has this famous thesis, average is over.
Right, the idea of skill polarization. Technology is eating up the middle skill jobs, the bookkeepers, the clerks, and leaving high skill technical roles and low skill service jobs.
And to stay in that high skill category, you have to be able to learn aggressively and continuously. Ultralearning is the mechanism for that.
Okay, let's test it with a real scenario. I have a full-time job. I want to learn data science. I can't just quit and start a huge project. How do I apply this?
You start with smart metalearning. You use what's called the expert interview method. Don't just read course brochures. Talk to actual working data scientists. Ask them what really matters for getting hired. Is it a degree, or is it a portfolio of real projects?
To find the real bottleneck first.
Then you prioritize directness, but you fit it into your life. It doesn't mean quitting your job. It means using your Saturday morning to build a small app that solves a real data problem, maybe even for your current company, instead of passively watching another online course.
So you find a way to do the thing, even on a small scale.
You let that small, direct project show you what you need to learn next. That's the loop.
What's the single most important mental shift in all of this?
It's switching your brain from comfortable passive review to active retrieval.
So stop rereading your notes.
Stop rereading your notes. It feels productive, but it just creates an illusion of competence. After you read a chapter, you need to close the book and, try to write down everything you remember.
Force the recall.
You have to constantly ask yourself, can I generate this answer without looking? That's what builds real, flexible knowledge.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. If I were going to explain this to someone, it boils down to 3 commands.
Go for it.
Step 1, stop guessing. Metalearn. Map out the terrain and find the real bottlenecks. Step 2, stop hiding in preparation. Be direct. Jump into the real thing, even if it means you fail early.
Yes. And step 3.
Step 3, stop reading your notes. Use retrieval. Constantly test yourself before you feel ready.
And when you put all that together, you're building knowledge that you can actually use, not just recognize on a test. You're taking ownership of the process.
It's about making your time truly count.
That's it. Ultralearning isn't about some secret genius. It's about using these intelligent strategies to expand what you're capable of. But the real payoff, the end goal of all this, isn't just competence. It's developing something deeper, intuition.
The ability to just see the answer.
Exactly. Think of the physicist Richard Feynman. He could look at a complex physics problem and instantly categorize it by its deep underlying principle-like conservation of energy, not by its surface features, like whether it involved a pulley or a ramp.
He saw the pattern, not just the pieces. That's the mark of real expertise.
It is. And the simplest tool to build that kind of intuition is something Feynman himself used. It's called the Feynman Technique.
Which is?
You explain the concept you just learned in the simplest possible terms, as if you were teaching it to a child. The moment you get stuck or have to use jargon, you found the exact gap in your own understanding. You go back, you fill that gap, and you try to teach it again. That process transforms brittle facts into deep, flexible intuition.
So the ultimate test of learning is teaching.
It always is. If you want more deep dives like this, where we unpack complex nonfiction ideas and give you the tools to actually apply them, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening to Nonfiction Insights.